Welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Emily.
And I'm Sadie. Do I?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
a co-host.
Perfect. And Sadie is known for her work with Speedy Ortiz, probably mostly, right?
Yeah, I do. I got a couple things. I play in a project called Sad 13 as well. And I'm also a poet.
That's awesome.
Thank
Very
you.
cool. Well, this is maybe the earliest in any time zone that we've recorded.
Really? What time zone are you all in?
Pacific.
Okay, so I just came from your time zone, so it feels exactly the same to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. What's not helping my condition at all is that my husband's been out of town on business and he just got back at 3:30 last night.
Oh,
His flight got way delayed from New York.
well, I can relate because I was supposed to be home 20 hours earlier than I was. We had some pretty severe weather on the East Coast, I guess, and I got stuck in LA for a little extra time.
20
Which
hours.
is why I had to push you up even earlier because I have things to do today that I thought I'd be recovered from jet lag wise. And yeah, anyway.
Not happening. Well, thanks for keeping with us and not canceling.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah, so I think on that note, a couple of us are at least drinking coffee.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm just on the water right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I got out of bed half an hour ago.
Nice.
It's
I'm jealous.
a week off for me. So
Yeah.
this is actually, I haven't been to work in a full week now. It's the strangest thing.
That's pretty dope, though.
I'm usually at work at 5 or 6 in the morning, and to be waking up at 8 feels so gluttonous. It's kind of nice.
That is nice.
I can't even imagine 5 or 6 in the morning.
No.
I guess, yeah. I had to be up. I guess I had to be up around 6 Pacific time because I got home at 11 p.m. last night, so I did get a long sleep in. I was up early for a phone call, and I just don't. I had a bad. I'm very sensitive to pretty much anything you can put in your body, including caffeine. And so typically I'll have 1 cup of tea a day. But I was in LA the past couple weeks doing some, not even a couple weeks, but a little over a week, doing some recording, and I was taking all these meetings, and I was just working from 7 a.m. till 1 or 2 a.m. every day without really any time off or time to myself. So I was caffeinating a little more than usual. And I had one day where I had to get 4 meetings in before I had to record. So it was 1 coffee, second coffee, 1 matcha, second matcha. I felt great all day.
Oh my gosh.
But I woke up the next morning with my heart racing as if I was still really caffeinated, and I didn't have to put any caffeine in the whole day. So I'm going to slow down now. Maybe never drink 4 caffeine drinks in a row.
Just living up to the
lot.
name Speedy Ortiz.
Oh my God. Yeah, usually I'm a slow bro, but not this week.
Yeah, I actually bogarted the entire half a pot of coffee I just made. I put it into one of my Stanleys so I can. I work from home, and on Fridays my husband also works from home. But we have to separate, otherwise nothing ever gets done. So I go downstairs into my office, and just to keep myself from having to come back upstairs, I poured half the pot of coffee into my Stanley thermos. So I just have my Stanley thermos, and I have my very rude bird mug. It has a bunch of birds with names like bearded tit, southern screamer, woodcock, cock of the rock. That's
these are actual birds.
Yeah, I hope so.
Nice.
Rough-faced sag, red-billed oxpecker. This mug makes me so happy. Yes.
That's a great mug.
It is. Tufted titmouse and Dick Kissel? Huh.
I wonder what ornithologist came up with those names.
A very horny one.
Very caffeinated one.
There we go.
Very nice. Very nice.
Caffeine is the new drug. Welcome to 2019 for the Get Offset podcast.
Caffeine is the new drug. Pot is the new legal drug.
Alcohol. Where do we even file that?
Drugs.
Tuesday
Old drugs.
morning.
Food. My parents are in town, and my mom, whenever she's in town, she likes to go to the pot shops because she just loves that that's a thing now.
Aw.
She always buys all these things and never opens them.
I've been sort of cautiously diving into CBD, but not cautiously enough. Like I really can't do any. As I said, very sensitive even to caffeine. Like I cannot smoke pot. But we played a festival in Portland a few weeks ago, and we got a goodie bag at the end of it that was all this CBD stuff.
Mhm.
And came home on a red eye, which I hate to do. And I had really terrible jet lag the next night, and it was like 4:30 in the morning. I had stuff to do early in the morning, and I was like, I'll never fall asleep. I could just take a Benadryl, but it'll make me groggy. Let me try this CBD stuff they gave me, and it was in capsule form. And I didn't realize that I took 100 milligrams of CBD, which I've been led to understand is quite a bit. Normally, people take like 15 milligrams.
Wait, the whole pill was 100 milligrams?
It was a 50 milligram pill, and the packaging said to take 2.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
So I didn't know. And the next day I woke up, I was like, I feel kind of groggy. I don't know. I went to the coffee shop, and my conversation with my friend who works there was like pretty awkward and difficult for me. And then I was getting in my car to drive to therapy, and I was like, driving is just really weirding me out. I was like, oh no, I'm high. I'm so high. And I was just like completely high for the entire day. I left my house unlocked, it turns out, when I came home, which I never do.
Oh my
Therapy was a
God.
real mess. Yeah, it was. So now I'm a a little.
You never
I'm
want your
trying to have CBD for sleep, but not 100 milligrams.
You never want your therapist to put like that note in the little therapy notes, like, was obviously very high.
Just
Oh, you better believe I
absolutely
told her
key.
right away, because I hate being high so much that this is like my greatest nightmare, to accidentally be indisposed in this way. So it was a funny session.
Well, you could look at it on the upside. You know how the Latin phrase goes, "Vito veritas."
Nice. Yeah, then the following week she's like, do you want to talk about any of the stuff you said last week? And I was like, good Lord, no. I was just spiraling into things I don't really feel or think. Anyway.
I've realized that I could actually read my therapist's notes about me on the internet, like on our little like eCare.
What?
Yeah. So I did it once, and then I was like, I don't think I should do this again. But I like that. I did notice that every time she mentioned my cat, she would write out my girl's whole name, which is Princess Carrie Fisher.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Oh man, love that lady. The therapist, also the cat.
Yeah.
Love that.
You can
cat.
have them all.
I can love all the things.
I would be scared to death to read my therapist's notes about me.
Don't do it. It's
don't know.
like just don't do it.
I don't want to know.
They're gonna have misspelled people in my lives' names, and then I'll have to bring it up. It's not a good path for me.
Yeah, actually, it's
I'll
Jeff.
be bothered about the wrong things.
It's Jeff with a Geoff. Jeff. Yeah, not to be confused with the Jeff. Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Jeffrey with 1 F.
Oh gosh, names are great. It's so early, y'all.
And then there's the Joffrey, but that's from the TV show.
Yeah.
Did you watch Game of Thrones, Sadie?
I did not.
All right, so we won't get into that.
I didn't either. I'm just happened to have heard that name thrown around, so I wanted to sound cool.
Same. I'm happy for everyone who loved it so much. That's my hard stance on Game of Thrones.
Great. That's a good way to be about things, I think. Oh, I'm very happy for the people who enjoy that they get to enjoy this.
Yeah, I was so psyched that everyone had something that they loved so much. And I didn't have to.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm not gonna lie, I felt that way, but on the flip side, I also really enjoyed the Schadenfreude of the last season tearing everybody up.
I don't want to talk about that, Andrew.
Yeah, these are spoilers. What if people haven't caught up?
I have very strong feelings about it also. I'd rather talk about guitars, honestly. Is this a guitar podcast?
I guess so.
I thought this was a cats podcast.
Are you going to talk about your cats?
I mean, I could. They're really adorable.
Sadie, do you have cats?
I do not. I'm very allergic to them.
Me too.
But I like them. I have a dog.
Oh, dogs.
Dogs are great. I want a dog.
I had 5 cats growing up. I think at some point we had more than that. because my mom, I grew up in New York City, and at some point my mom moved to a very rural northwestern Connecticut where there's like farms and stuff. And we think a cat wandered down from the dairy farm and looked like it was starving to death. So we started feeding it. At some point we realized it was quite pregnant. And
Oh,
we wound up taking all these cats in. So
my God.
I was very dosed on allergy medication my whole childhood. And when I turned 18, I was like, I'm done with this. I love the cats, but I can't take Claritin anymore.
Oh my
Because
God.
again, very sensitive to everything.
I'm really allergic to my cat, but I just love her so much. But that story reminds me of Layla from Tuna Tone's story about how she got her cat.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to steal Layla's stories, but she, I guess Tuna had kind of decided that Layla was her person when she lived like sort of in a
Oh, the
downtown
cat is
area.
named Tuna.
Oh yeah, that's why it was called that's why it's called Tuna
Oh,
Town.
I never knew. That's so cute.
Isn't it? Well, Tuna died earlier this year, so now it's kind of
Oh
sad.
no.
But
No, it's a nice memorial.
But yeah, Tuna, I guess, had found her way into Layla's apartment one night and had a litter of kittens in her laundry basket. And
Oh
Layla
my
just comes home to
God.
this litter of kittens, this cat that she didn't want to commit to. She's like, "Well, I guess it's my cat now."
I
That's
feel
so
like you just
cute.
have to look at that litter of kittens. You're like, how much CBD did I take?
How high am I? Yeah. But you know Tuna Tone, right?
Just on the internet. I think perhaps we have some plan to meet in the fall for there's some
Right.
Philly
She's
expo happening, but
Yeah. I have one of her guitars and it is my absolute favorite.
they're beautiful. Yeah, I like. I have never played one, but I like the look of them.
It weighs like 6 pounds. So that's
Nice.
really great for the way I've been doing gigs all summer, which is the day of the gig, you show up to the venue at noon and then you run through all the songs and then you play them for 3 hours.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, but it's fun. It's two of the same show. So it was rotating singers in a house band.
Okay.
So uh the singers would say which songs they wanted to sing, and it was like a country music tribute night. So it'd be like Loretta Lynn and Tammy Wynette. So they would send us whichever Loretta or Tammy songs they wanted to play, and we typically didn't get the set list until the night before, because sometimes singers are slow like that.
Mm.
Yeah,
What?
I'd be looking at the chart. I told you this, Andrew. Oh,
I know. I couldn't help to take a slight jab at singers, mostly out of jealousy because I can't hold a tune.
mm.
But
Yeah. So then we just go through it with each song with the singers in 30-minute increments, and then we do 2 sets, and it was so fun.
That sounds fun, and sounds like you'd probably want something light on your upper vertebra.
Yep, when you're standing for like 8 hours with it, I'm sure. So tell us about your guitars.
Yeah, primarily I've been playing a guitar that was built for me by Moniker, which
Oh, rest
yeah,
in peace,
rest in
Moniker.
peace. It's
They were so great.
They were so great. This guitar is great. I love it. And so I play that primarily live. Sometimes I play PRS, Mira. I grew up a Fender player, like probably a lot of kids.
Oh yeah.
Started on Strats and then sort of migrated over to Jazz Masters.
Mm.
What else? I mean, I kind of like everything. I'll try any guitar. I played a baritone Dan Electro.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have fun. Me and my things that are all stacked behind me.
Your horde.
My little family.
I always joke that I have guitars laying around the house like cats.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I have only so many stands, so a lot of them wind up in cases. But then I'll be pulling one out, and then suddenly it's, um, occupying the entirety of the couches and chairs in my little studio basement. So
Yeah. Yep.
I was just
Only so many can fit in corners.
I was working out of New Monkey Studio, which had been Elliott Smith's studio, and I rarely get to fly in for a recording session, so usually I'm showing up with a huge arsenal of my own stuff. And in this case, I didn't. I brought the moniker just in case there was anything that was like, you never know what the action will be like if you're trying guitars,
Yeah.
and maybe some parts would have been tricky, but I didn't have to use it. I just every single part, every like 3-second part, I was like, okay, now I want to use like this particular guitar.
Nice.
Kind of fun to get to play all these because I'm not like super into Telecasters.
Yeah.
But I was having a lot of fun recording with one that I don't have to own.
Yes.
Not a big like, I never thought I wanted a Les Paul, but had a lot of fun recording on one.
I believe that. And that kind of leads into the topic.
Yeah.
But Andrew, do you want to thank your sponsor first? Our sponsor?
I do want to thank sponsor and friend of the show, Chad Jennings of Jennings Guitars.
Well, that's a great radio voice you just had.
It was really good.
You've been working on it.
No, that's my I just woke up, my voice hasn't warmed up yet voice.
I was actually thinking it's great that we're taping this today because, as I said, I was in LA working from like 7 a.m. to 1 or 2 a.m. every night, and my voice sounds like it, which is perfect for a podcast or radio.
Very jazz DJ. I'm the same way right now, I think.
Nice. We all
Like-
sound super cool.
Yeah. Just like so much vocal fry.
Yeah.
Just sounds so rad, man. Just like hear the voices and like, yeah, dude.
Can't do a single episode, Andrew, without your okay. Without your California voice.
Jennings Guitars provides U.S. handmade guitars at an affordable price. Get yours today at JenningsGuitars.com.
They are really affordable. It's kind of insane.
It is actually pretty insane, and
Yeah.
I can't wait for my build to come in. I've talked about it a lot, and I think I'm just going to start saying I'm just excited for it and let everybody start to get excited with me because I can't wait.
If you hear me typing, it's because I'm looking them up now too to see if I want one.
Oh, they're great. They're
Ooh.
super.
Oh, I've looked at these before. Yeah, these are nice.
Yeah, so I'm getting a Voyager Deluxe, and the only thing I'll say more about that topic is that let's just say orange is going to be the coolest color for guitars in 2020. It's a trend. It's going to be a thing.
All
All
right.
right.
Orange is
I
the
can-
new. Finish my sentence.
3-tone sunburst. I'm not sure what it was before.
Nice. Yes, thank you. That was good.
I was gonna say black, but
We've been there. We've done that.
I'm so tired.
I feel like shell pink and surf green have both been really popular as of
I've
late.
got shell pink on my moniker.
That's my my tuna tone.
Nice.
Shell pink is great, but I gotta say, orange is gonna have to take over.
Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
gotta
Let
happen.
me see yours
So-
first. I tried to build mine to look like Sailor Moon's guitar. So it has
Nice.
the crescent moon cut out. There's all kinds of like pearl details and gold. It just looks like her wand in guitar form.
Is that the one that says Sad 13 on the headstock?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
you played it at the KXP thing.
I'm sure I did. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really fun guitar.
Oh, those KXP sessions I love. I don't know why they take like 4 months to come out though.
Because they probably do so many of them, and I'm not sure. It was fun working there because they have they've sort of redone everything, and now they have laundry for bands.
That's so nice of
So
them.
you can do your laundry while you're taping the session, which especially is great because often you wind up, you're coming from having played Portland the previous night, and you got to get, or even God forbid Vancouver, and they sometimes start quite early in their sessions. So
Yeah,
That's really thoughtful.
it's like
it's very thoughtful.
we were so effusive and thankful about the laundry more so than anything. I mean, those are great sessions. They look beautiful. They sound better than anybody else's radio sessions.
Mhm.
But laundry,
because
someone who tours thought of that.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm sure. A lot of them
another
have.
great reason to love our wonderful city and its independent radio station.
Support
Yeah.
KXP comes from the listeners.
93.3.
Cool. Yeah, I love KXP. They are fantastic. And Shira Waters is the best at
Trail's
interviewing.
very cool. We so Speedy started in like 2015 posting safer spaces policies at our shows. We have a text hotline that you can contact if you're experiencing harassment at one of our shows.
Oh,
And
I
we
love
also
that.
distribute bystander intervention and de-escalation tactics, like a one sheet at our merch table. And sometimes I get asked to consult for like other bands who want to do that, or venues. And KEXP is the first radio station that reached out to me asking what they can do and how they can help Seattle's music scene. So not only a great station, but they really care about their listeners, which I thought
That's
was
so
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Do you have that one? You said you have a one-sheeter that pamphlet that you give out at the merch table?
So I basically, you know, the organization Hollaback.
Yeah.
So they have all kinds of tactics online, and I consolidated some of them into like a one-page thing that's easy to print out, black and white. So we just print a ton of them off the top of every tour, and they're just available at our merch table.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that one. I think.
That's super rad.
Yeah. That is. It's important, and there's just a lot of things that I think that venues and festivals can do to make that environment overall better.
They're starting to, for sure.
Yeah.
Or
Seems that
trying
way.
to start to.
I know I worked at for some festivals for a number of years in Seattle, and the big thing that we always try to do is make sure we have female security guards,
Great.
because that was just so important for women
Mm-hmm.
feel more comfortable probably going up to Alexandra or someone, instead of our dudes were always just super sweet teddy bears, but they're a little intimidating on the outside, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, and frankly, they're not always super sweet teddy bears. I think
No, they're not.
hiring security, not only for festivals but for venues, you're hiring out to another company, and you can't be certain of how people are trained and what they're trained, how they're trained to react. So often, like, we're having these things, and security will pick them up, and that makes me happy because I've certainly seen people get very aggressive with me when I'm working and just trying to get back to my stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to dwell on that.
No, it's not at all.
That's not. It's too early to get that dark. But so Andrew was so excited when I told him we were going to talk about studio stuff today, because like I majored in music business, and I spent a lot of time in studios, a little bit as a recording person and artist, guitarist, and a lot as someone whose boyfriend worked in studios. Oh, which I don't recommend dating that way anymore. But so Andrew's never even been in a proper studio.
Really?
Yeah, that's one of the things where I've always wanted to, and like ever since before I even really started learning how to play an instrument, was like that looks super cool. I want to go do that. I want to go sit in a vocal booth. Like I don't even sing. I just want to sit in and just like, wow, that's a U87 sitting right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever been like in a proper studio. I've been in some pretty decent home bake, like someone's extra room studios, and I've played with a decent amount of equipment. I've watched countless hours on YouTube, and so I'm sure I could slip into a studio and at least sort of understand what's going on. But I've always wanted to be in there, and that's kind of like that magical Disneyland
What's stopping you now?
time.
Time,
Time.
money,
Yeah, the usual.
the huge.
Yep,
No,
the huge.
the huge. But it's so fun and wild the first time you go into one.
Do you remember when that was for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was in college. It was probably my freshman year. Honestly, one of my first days, I had to take recording technology class. It's probably one of the first courses I had to take in college. And so we would go from like, I think the class was technically in like the Studio C, so just a vocal booth and a little smaller mixing board. But then the Studio A had like an enormous Neve console and a big
Whoa.
room and little breakout rooms. It was like a world class studio.
Where were you in school?
Belmont University in Nashville.
Damn. Well, yeah.
And
There you go.
yeah, and then Belmont also has the lease on RCA Studio B. So when I recorded my EP in college, my boyfriend was uh, working at that studio as part of his student work, which is insanely cool. So I recorded a lot of my EP there, which
That's
is
amazing. So
stupid.
lucky. I have a lot of friends who went to because I used to live in Massachusetts. I got a lot of friends who went to Berkeley,
Oh.
and they have Susan Rogers on faculty there. So all my friends will be like, "Yeah, I did my Bandcamp album with Susan beeping Rogers." I'm quite
Oh,
envious.
God, I could listen to that woman tell stories for hours.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
She's the best.
Um,
For those who don't know, Susan Rogers was Prince's like personal engineer for 5 years, maybe, like
I'm
during
not
Purple
sure.
Rain.
Long time though, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at least through Purple Rain, through Sign of the Times, I think.
Yes.
I
So
forgot
imagine
about
just being
that.
like a college student and suddenly Susan Rogers is producing you.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a summer camp when I was most of my childhood that I later worked at. But it had started as like a socialist work camp in I think the 50s. But by the time I was there, it was like a Montessori style studio arts camp. So they had not only on the visual side of things like glass blowing and sculpting, welding, stuff like that, but they had a recording studio. And so the first like 2 years I was there, I kind of tried out all kinds of things that weren't studio recording. And by the time I finally landed in the studio, which obviously at this point now I'm like, oh, it's sort of bare bones. I have as much stuff as they had then for my little home setup, but I was just like fascinated and obsessed, and was just constantly trying to get myself on the schedule there as much as possible. Um, and I feel really lucky that I was like 15 years old when that was happening.
Oh
And,
yeah.
I think that a lot of the sort of, and there was also a woman working in the studio. It was like two dudes and a woman. So I think a lot of the like gender discrimination that not even as an engineer, but that women who go into the studios for the first time experience feeling intimidated to talk back or to be explicit about what they want sound wise.
Mm-hmm.
Just it didn't even wouldn't have ever occurred to me because I was like 15. So I feel so lucky constantly whenever I'm working in a studio that I got in early enough that I just didn't have a chance to develop those kinds of insecurities. So I'm very
Yeah.
good at like talking back and being explicit about what it is I need, which I think sometimes there's it's changing more so, but I think, there's like a studio culture of saltiness, and I feel versed in it.
Yeah, and I think that such a big part of that is not just like almost a self-consciousness that women tend to have, but just like you were able to develop the vocabulary of all those
Yep.
things a lot younger,
Yes.
and that is
Which is
so
what builds your
key.
confidence in using them.
Oh, totally. You're like, oh no, I don't like the hall reverb, let's try the plate reverb, and like
Yep.
that's so major. But I was just I just had a little rehearsal with a woman I'm going to play guitar with for a show coming up, and she sent me her album, and I learned the guitar parts in the album, and I go in, and she's like, well, I didn't really like the way the guitar was on the album. So my first reaction was like, okay, well then I would not have spent the time learning those parts. I would have just done my own thing. But it made me feel bad that she didn't at the time, like, this is her work, and she didn't have whatever that she needed to feel comfortable to say to the person who was playing guitar, like, this is not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me sad for her.
Yeah, because it's your permanent document of hopefully getting, as clear a representation of what you're hearing in your head. It's always such a disappointment when those things don't line up as closely as you'd hoped.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I've been working on, what I'm recording right now is for my like solo project, which is still sounds full band, but the first record I did of it's called Sad 13, the project, and I just recorded the whole thing alone in a bedroom, and played everything. I think we retracked the drums with a drummer, and then I retracked some of the vocals with a friend who had nicer mics than I do. But beyond that, it was just very much me in a room for 2 weeks. So I've been doing the second record for this project, and similarly, like I'm playing everything. I'm writing the drum parts, but I got my very amazing friend Zoe Brecher who's gonna drum for me on it. but it's taking so much more time than it does when I'm just recording it myself at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's lo-fi and it's just me, I'm like, well, I don't, I can just comp all these parts together. I don't really, I'm not as concerned about, it'll be like that I played it and wrote it in a single day, and then 10 months later I have to learn it for the tour. I'm going into nicer studios to redo these now, with like proper engineers who aren't just me being an idiot at home. So I'm really like, my brain has just been filled with trying to memorize 30 tracks of like weird guitar or whatever, like synths that I, did in soft synths at home, but now I'm going to play them on whatever crazy thing the studio has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a fun experience, but I can really only do like 2 songs at a time because it's just so much for my brain to hold on to.
Yeah, and listening to, I don't know how it compares to the Speedy Ortiz stuff, but like that's those are some complex things in a really cool way. It's like,
It's definitely complex, but the difference there is that because I have, I'm still pretty much writing. I'm not writing all the parts, but I'm writing most of the parts, or at least like coming up with the part that then gets changed to be a similar part. But I don't have to memorize more than just the guitar parts, which is easy for me.
yeah,
Synth a little less so, like bass a little bit less so. Uh, so yeah, it's a
yeah.
lot to keep track of.
But that's how Prince worked too. Like he
It
would
is,
just
yeah.
go, and that's just 80% ship it, and that's, yeah, it's crazy to me. Like that's so much to do.
It's a lot to do. It's fun though. I'm
Yeah.
really kind of remembering those feelings of being 15 and being like, wow, this is the thing I'm most excited about in the entire world. I want to stay up all night, like continuing to work on these things. Which is,
Hmm.
I'm twice, a little over twice that age now, so it's fun to tap in to those kind of excited feelings again.
Yeah. How long have you been playing guitar?
I started when I was just before I was 13.
Oh,
So
nice.
I got a guitar for my 13th birthday, but it was like a couple months before that. So I
Hmm.
cheated a little bit.
I think my cat's about to jump into a trash can.
Oh,
Don't do it.
how long has your cat been jumping into trash cans?
This is a new trash can. So my grandmother died pretty recently, so my
Oh, I'm
parents just drove
sorry.
up. Thank you. It she listened to every episode of this podcast. It's just, I miss her. But my parents drove up with some things from their house all the way from South Carolina. They drove across the country, and one of those things was this big Charlie Brown Peanuts metal trash can that was always in my room in their house growing up, and it was originally my aunt's. So that's just sitting out, and I have to decide where to put it. And I think my cat's like, I think I fits. I think I fits. And I don't want the loud clank to happen when she jumps in, realize she doesn't super duper fit, and then can't really get out.
That looks like a great place for me to sit down. Maybe I can. We're just gonna jump in there. Oh my god! No! 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 No!
I'll tell you what, Andrew, I think my cat heard you do that from my headphones.
Well, that was
That was your cat's inner monologue anyway, so it's fine.
right.
That's literally always her inner monologue. She's a very scaredy cat. No, 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 no. So Andrew, studio stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get your take.
Well, what do you want to know?
It was so funny talking with you a little bit last night about studio stuff. And you're like, I just want to go in with 4 or 5 ideas in one day. I'm like, that's a lot of ideas for one day, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like really hyped because I've always got tons of ideas floating around in my head, and I haven't played it in a group for a year and a half now. So it's been a little bit since I've played with other musicians, and I just miss it. And I was just getting very hyped at just the remote idea of doing anything like that.
So would you, in
And
your dream, would you be writing in the studio? Would you come in with like sort of loose ideas and then experiment?
the way I like to write songs is to have a couple of riffs, some riffs to go off of, or maybe some lyrics to work around, depending on if I want to do something written around the guitar part or something written around the lyrics, and then get together with a couple of competent musicians and see what they have to add to the mix and just kind of start playing with it until it sounds right.
Nice. I like
It's
that.
kind of how I've always done with bandmates and like, yeah, here's the sick. Like I used to be in a metalcore band and we sucked. It was terrible. But uh, I say that half joking mostly because it was just we didn't play for long enough to really flush out the fullness of our sound. But I would just show up like, hey, I've got this riff. What can we do with it? And then a few hours later we had a song.
I like
And it was
that.
always just really fun to do it that way.
I think what's so interesting to me learning about other people's processes is that people are so like specific and vary so widely in how like I couldn't even imagine writing that way because I'm such a like utter I mean I have OCD so I guess maybe that explains some of it but I'm very I cannot jam. I don't. I could, but I'm not going to be like happy with anything I do that way. And so I'm always amazed when I have bands that are just like four people and they kind of just jam together and then wrote something so crazy because it's so impressive to me. Because what I have to do is like spend 24 hours alone recording in my own home first before I even get to something that I would want to do in the studio. Because if I'd gone into the studio in the first place, I would just be wasting so much money because I want to have like the most clear plan. So I'll come in with like these serial killer notes of like, here's where this exactly like measures where these sounds are happening, and here's exactly how I affected them, so we can like replicate that with the studio stuff. It's just like, it's a bit, it's probably
I mean,
overwhelming for other people who have to be around me, but yeah.
oh, that's not a bad way to do it at all. And I I was in a jazz group for a bit. And when I say jazz group, I really mean it was my high school jazz band. But I mean, it was the same thing. We all had sheet music, and that was just it was the clinical that we wanted to play it down to the note of
Yeah.
what we were working with, and that there's there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I really enjoyed that way as well. I think, and that's also how I get at the end of the process. So I guess where I start is I start with a riff. We collaborate until we have most of the bones, and I really like the way that that turns out because it always feels like there's interplay between the musicians. And then after that, it's the finishing touches. Is where do we add the little fix here? Where can we add in like because we play with backing tracks, we could add in a little bit of synth bits here and there, and like where can we add this and that's where I break out the sheet music and I start actually writing out what I have to work with. And like, oh, well, maybe if we add in this note here with this sound, um, like that's where I start getting back to the clinical
Yeah, that's cool.
side.
This session that I just finished is the first time I've written out sheet music for my own project since I was like sort of probably early college,
Wow, that's awesome.
which is like, of course, I don't fully remember how to do it, but I at least was able to write it in a way that I could read it myself and explain.
Mm-hmm. Like
Yeah, no, that
staff notes and everything too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a program you use for that, or did you do it by hand?
No, I was doing this by hand, like on a plan.
Wow. Nice. Yeah.
that's the only way to do it. I hate using programs to write music.
I mean, I have ProSonus 3 that I'm about to use to do some things for Eastwood,
Cool.
and I don't because nobody wants to like download my chicken scratch from hand, which I have.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. And I'll have the tabs and the shape notes, and I can listen back and make sure that that it really is an eighth note there and not a dotted eighth note.
Mm.
Ugh. Yeah, I just need to do that more. I'm so out of practice. I've never read notes for like actual staff notes for guitar.
So guitar. This is the thing, because so I'm playing all this stuff. Guitar is very easy for me to memorize because it's my primary instrument that I know really well. So I didn't have to write out anything for guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I just know what the part is, and that was enough. But for all the synth stuff, I haven't. I played piano as a little kid, but I haven't. I'm writing all these parts, and then I'm like, I can't remember, you know, where the sharps. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember what things are. So I was writing out like synth and keys and organ music.
Mm-hmm. Damn, that sounds harder almost. But
It's
I
easier for me
respect
because
it.
I'm like I can see where I'm like, oh,
Oh
my hand
yeah.
only has to move like this certain.
Yeah. I guess like I feel like it's easier to visualize a keyboard than it is for some reason to visualize notes
Sheet
on.
music for guitar.
Yeah, because I've never really thought about guitar in that way.
When I first started playing, I did only because I was trying to teach myself, and I did like classical singing when I was younger, like when I was in middle and high school. So I would be like, I'm just gonna try to play this weird like choral sheet music on guitar. So yeah, that early on in playing guitar, I was looking at sheet music and trying to play from it, but not in so long that that's not. I can barely tap into that anymore.
Yeah. No, it's like it's a muscle you have to stretch for sure.
Very much, yeah.
It's like when you get older, like you have to remember to practice to put your arms over your head or you're going to lose the ability to do that.
Oh my god, scared.
I know.
You saying that made me just do it.
I know I'm doing it as I go to boxing classes a couple times a week and I really love seeing the woman there in her 70s and she's not really hitting the bag very hard or anything, but she's going through more movements than she would go through with other kinds of exercise and is probably having a lot more fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, just I'm trying to convince my mom to do it because she's been running and it's been, I think, wreaking a little bit of havoc on her hips and stuff. And I'm
It's
like,
very hard on your body, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, well, and she's worried about the boxing. Like, I think it's just like a more natural motion and kind of keeps your joints loose because you're twisting and you're pivoting a little bit more and
Yeah.
yeah, and you're kind of jumping up and you're like moving her arms around. But I mean, she's been a runner for forever.
Well, the running is just a lot of hard impact, especially if you're running on streets.
Yes. Well, the streets are better than on the sidewalk, marginally.
Marginally, but
Asphalt
it's still really difficult. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and
um,
trail running is dangerous sometimes.
it is. Yeah, I did cross country in high school until I
Mhm.
got severely injured, and I haven't done a whole lot of long. Like, I think the longest I've been able to run since then is like maybe 3 miles before my knee starts giving out on me.
Oh
It's like
wow.
really screwed up my
Yeah.
joints.
Yikes. I've
So
done
I do distance running.
yeah.
I did track and cross country in high school, and I have kind of run on and off on tour since then. But I trained for a marathon over the past year. And the training went really well, except for I got a flu the day of the marathon, so I had to
Oh,
like
gee.
bail out halfway through because I got really sick.
Yeah.
Which was a bummer because all my training had gone well. But I did early on. I started experiencing some lower back sciatica stuff, and what the PT was saying is because running is only you're basically only moving in one plane. You just go forward all the time. Something like boxing or a sport where you are sometimes going backwards, sometimes going to the side, sometimes doing some twisting, is much less likely to cause you injury.
And it's the same idea of people like high school athletes who do more than one sport are less likely to be injured because they're stretching out those other muscles.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I've done two half marathons. I was supposed to do a full marathon and like I think like the day after my big 10-mile run that went so well, I went on a little short a couple days after. I went on a little short run. My knee was bothering me at the beginning. I ignored it and by the end of it I'm like I messed up.
Did you get it checked out?
Yeah, and I didn't do the full marathon. I ended up doing the half marathon. I was recovered enough to do that, but
Nice.
yeah, my husband ignored some knee pain, and then he had to get like some shot, and then he got an
Oh
ulcer.
no.
He ran the marathon. He got an ulcer though.
That's the thing. Like I got halfway through my marathon and I'd done I'd done the 20-mile training. I'd done everything and was feeling good. And then I got a flu 4 days before the marathon. Like an idiot, decided to run it anyway.
Oh
And
God.
then about halfway through, my whole right leg just felt completely seized up. I still went a couple miles, but at some point I was just like walking and trying to like pick up my leg even to get to the next step. And I had to go to the medic tent. And it turns out I blew out my IT band.
Oh
So I've been
damn.
in it's mostly better now. I've been in physical therapy for the past couple months, but and they think I'll be fine to do a fall marathon.
hmm
But yeah, I feel like it's hard when you have the adrenaline and you want to just run through something that's painful because you think you'll be fine, and then you can really cause yourself more injury if you ignore those
That's
signs of pain.
Yeah.
yeah. IT band was on the list of things that I also injured in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not exciting. It was getting super tight, and so I was straining my IT band, but it was also yanking on my knee, so it also strained my meniscus at the
Yep.
same
Ugh.
time where I had
We had the same problem.
I had 10 in my right and 8 in my left ankle for stress fractures at the same
Oh my
time
god.
because I was getting run like 10 to 20 miles a day.
So you had stress fractures in your ankle. Sorry, this is turning into a running
That's
podcast.
fine.
This is fascinating. You hurt your ankle, and then the opposite IT band was the problem.
I hurt both ankles. So I had
Oh my
stress
god.
fractures in both ankles. I had a sprain in my right ankle. I had my right knee had a strained meniscus and the strained IT band.
You just had everything.
Amber's
I am.
ambersitis in my right knee. I was on so much ibuprofen for months.
That's
Which
not
might
great.
again
for
can
you.
actually cause you even further injury while running.
But my PRs are great. I was really excited about my PRs, which is what kept me going. I was like, I'm going to run through this pain. I'm
Yeah.
going to get my PR. I was really proud of my mile time, and I wanted to get it down even further.
God,
So,
I was always a slow runner. I just felt so good if I finished.
Yeah. It's, it's whatever feels good to you in your run, I
I
think.
hated running. My husband loves it.
Sprained my ankle falling down the stairs carrying some gear
Oh.
2 weeks before this marathon, but it's the opposite ankle of the leg the IT band I pulled. But the PT thinks probably, even though the ankle sprain wasn't bothering me running, it probably impacted my gait, and was on top of that having the flu. I was probably just putting all the work on my right leg, and that's why I blew out my IT band. Anyway, guitars.
real quick before we go back to guitars, I got to throw it there. I was really proud of my 1 mile time was 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Damn,
That's
Kevin
great.
Bannister.
That's very good.
Jeez.
And then I got injured. So,
yikes. Wow.
I'm proud of you still.
Yes, we're very proud of you, Andrew.
Anyways, back to guitars, where I know much less about the studio
Well,
world. I want to hear. I want to hear all the things.
Just real quick, there's a pool like running back to being a musician. That's one of the easier fitness regimens to keep up on the road. I'd assume
it's the only one I can think to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
Unless I were to sit up and do yoga every day, which feels awkward when I'm staying with other people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go on tour for a few weeks in the winter, like in February, I think. And I'm just kind of dreading not boxing for 2 weeks. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna be probably eating too much fast food and not being active.
You could probably find like
a boxing gym,
or not even just a gym, like a podcast. So that's something you can do. I know that there's like audio fitness things that you can do.
That's true.
That you have boxing.
I could shadow box.
All my friends that do CrossFit all have like their set list of things that they can do just in a hotel room without any equipment.
Like
that's what you gotta find.
Just throw their
Just
bags around a little bit.
I'm no longer the type of person to do exercise, but
I'll do the weightlifting routine with my JC40.
There you go.
Ugh.
Just like a kettlebell.
Just
swing it up.
I mean, it's solid state, so it'll be fine.
Yeah,
it'll all be fine. I'm not worried. But studio stuff.
Yeah. Well, the reason I thought to do this is because, over the course of I've been working in studio since I was 15. I have certain habits that to me seem very normal, and that I was working with this really great engineer, Sarah Tudson, who's in the band Illuminati Hotties. You should absolutely have her. She's a dream to work with. We were working out of this Elliott Smith studio, New Monkey, and there were just a couple things that I did that she was like, "Oh, I haven't thought of people doing that." Like I wrote and arranged these songs basically to the gear list of the studio.
Oh, smart.
So I was, so that was kind of a fun thing, but apparently that's unusual. And I told her that I won't mix over email. I only will do attended mix sessions, and it's like crazy to me that people do them over email, but apparently having that as a hard and fast rule is not, I don't know. Not I can't believe that's not universal.
But that seems so hard.
I guess I was
like to communicate. Like
I can't mix over email.
Oh.
I had to throw out mixes that Sylvia Massey did, which were like, fuck, she's awesome. But I was just like, it's gonna go into so many revisions, and she doesn't have time for this, and I'm not getting quite what I want because I can't just be there and say like pan to there or like
exactly, or just turn that EQ
use this
knob
plug
a
into
bit.
this point.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Because I just feel like
so I guess I was curious if you guys have. I don't know.
I do not understand mixing on anything other than like a physical console. Huh. I can't unless you can like physically touch the things. Like I just can't visualize it. So if I'm recording in like Studio One, and I don't because I don't have something like that at my house, but I'll just plug into my Focusrite. Typically, like I'll do a little panning, and then I'll adjust the volume just a little bit. But I mean, this is never going to be stuff that I feel comfortable releasing because it's never going to be a good mix ever. I just need to look at it and dick around with it, with my hands. God, that sounded awful.
That's kind of awesome because increasingly, even people who have crazy boards are like automating everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't know. Do you have a pretty sizable pedal board? Do you take that into studios?
I try actually on the pedal front, as little of my gear as I can use as
Mm-hmm.
possible is what I prefer because I want to be able to get sounds that aren't just like my go-to, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Especially the pedals I play with live all the time, I feel like are my go-to sound, but I want the songs to be their own little universes.
Yeah.
So I will try to use as much of the studio's pedals as possible, especially if there's anything like kind of rare and kind of broken. Um, I love stuff that like doesn't fully work and can lend that character to the recording.
Yes.
But I usually will bring, like, for instance, this was a fly-in session, so I couldn't and didn't want to bring my whole, and I have like a big pedal board, but I also have tons and tons of other pedals at home,
Mm-hmm.
that I primarily just use for home recording. So I brought a little shoebox of like, just in case, like non-negotiable for me, I need to have a great
Mm-hmm.
overdrive. Um, and so I brought the one that I prefer to use,
Which is
Earthquaker Dunes, which is sort of
Mm.
my go-to
yeah, that's one
live
of
guy.
the best TS style pedals
Yeah,
on the market always.
I would agree. I brought that. I brought an Avalanche Run from Earthquaker.
You're just nailing it.
But I didn't even wind up having to use them because there was so much cool stuff, so much cool like weird stuff I'd never heard of at New Monkey. Um, so that's generally my preference is to go for the stuff I don't already know, so I can experiment rather than just dialing up. Okay, here's my normal Dune setting, like
I just think that's smart. I don't think that should be weird. I think that everybody should like consider doing that.
playing to what the studio has.
Yeah, when I went to the studio a few weekends ago, that studio didn't have a lot there. Like I looked at their list. I'm like, well, I'll just bring my things. But right up the street from me is the Recovery Effects studio, and that's like Andrew
Cool.
and I were talking. I don't know if you're familiar with their pedals, but they're really neat.
I haven't
And
played them, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah. Uh, and Andrew and I really want to do an episode with them soon where we actually go into their studio. But if you look at the list of the things that they have at that studio, it's incredible. And it's a lot of weird boutique stuff, and that's what I love a lot.
That's cool. I'm looking
Yeah.
at all these. I want them.
Yes, I need to pick some of those up. I had been on a bit of a spending freeze, and now I'm coming out of that.
You're flush.
Well, I like to I'm going to try to only spend money I make through music on music.
Mm, that's cool.
I think that would be smart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've had some
Break
gigs
even.
lately. Yeah, yeah, just at least break even because I have the day job and
Treat
stuff.
yourself.
I try to treat myself. I work all the time.
That's literally not even exaggeration. Emily won't even say this, but I don't think she takes breaks. I don't think that's a thing.
9 to 5, 5 to 9.
Relatable.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's my anxiety. I don't like not being active, I guess, in some
Yeah.
way. Which my therapist would say that's a whole thing.
Fair. I mean, I think we were talking about my therapy earlier, and that I have OCD, and I only started going again this year because some of my like OCD symptoms were like coming back and being worse, and so it's crazy how much of my work ethic I attribute to that, like in a way that I'm trying to strike a balance between um I don't know. Like I love doing music and I love working all the time, and I'm so excited to collaborate with as many people as possible. And then I come home from a trip like this one where I didn't really get any sleep, and my voice is shot, and I feel just like dead exhausted.
Hmm.
So it's so hard to strike that balance when you are excited about your work and are bad at when your attention stuff gets so focused that you're like, I haven't used the bathroom in 8 hours or like had a sip
Yeah.
of water.
Like, oh, I didn't eat lunch today.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with running. You've got to pace yourself,
Yeah.
or you'll get burned out and injured. And
Oh, I like that.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's why I joined like the boxing gym because now that I'm paying for it, I feel more compelled to take those kinds of breaks.
That's cool.
That's a little bit of self-care.
I want a box.
You should. If you're ever in Seattle, I'll take you to my boxing gym.
That it's a date.
Sweet. Yes.
We were using one pedal in this studio. The how do you say it? Like Jext Telez. Do you know this?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, they have one that's like it's called the white pedal, and it just like it's in a Beatles lunchbox. It's all white. You just have the like volume, tone, gain, whatever, and there is a switch on the side, the only one that's labeled other than like VTG, whatever. It says Yoko, and we were like, "What does this do?" And I was like, "Oh my god, does it make it break up?" Um,
Oh my
it,
god!
Does it?
it does not. It's like a
Oh
filter,
no,
but
that would have been
now I'm like,
smarter.
I wish it had made it break up. Like that's sorry.
It's a
That's
fine.
meowing funny. Even though I'm like obviously
Well,
team Yoko. Um,
that's still funny. Yeah.
but I wound up using that for a lot of the like overdrive and fuzz stuff.
That's so cool.
All right, so I have to ask a question. I'm sure this is just the question that gets answered or asked anytime studio techniques comes up, but I want to hear your thoughts on DI and reamping. Go.
Okay. I mean, we'll often use both the DI and the amp sound because I really love like bands like Deerhoof, and I feel like that kind of sound is so crunchy and fun and allows for like really extreme mixing choices. So yeah, I mean, I'll DI and reamp plenty of things.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more along the lines of like I've heard people complain like, oh, well, the studio engineer wants to take a DI, and I just know that after I leave the studio and they go to do their mix, they're going to reamp it through pedals and amps to make it sound different than what my sound is, because that's not my sound. And I've heard people get all upset
Sounds
about
like they
that.
have a terrible relationship with their engineer.
Yeah, that's exactly what that
Well,
sounds like.
that's a given.
It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
But-
always down in mixing the last Speedy record. We wound up doing tons of stuff like that, and I just feel like it allows you the opportunity to try more things. I don't. Yeah, I've never heard of
you know,
someone doing that without telling the artist though. That's crazy. That's why you got to
I
attend your mix sessions.
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
No, I appreciate your common sense attitude, and at the same time, I was hoping that you wouldn't see it so cut and dry for a little bit of drama.
Andrew is
trust
a
me, I love
drama
drama.
king.
I can be,
I love
but
drama.
I really do appreciate the no nonsense. Like, yeah, that's just why would you be upset? Because that's how I feel.
I'd be upset if someone did anything without my knowledge or consent, like working without me there. That sounds pretty gross, but yeah.
And to present it as anything other than like, oh, here's an option for you. Just no.
And you know what?
Right.
Like your tone that you hear in your head and that is the room just with your guitar playing isn't necessarily what's going to meld best with the other tracks you layer on. So you always want the option of being able to change things, sometimes even drastically later when, the great part that you wrote that should be cutting through everything is not even apparent in the mix. Sometimes you need to look to other solutions.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So you produce your records, sounds like.
So yeah,
Co-produce.
I was always hesitant to take that title on when I wasn't engineering as well, but I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. No, that's really cool because I feel like not enough women, especially, take on that role.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really a lot of people that I admire engineer and produce their own stuff. And like, I have to mention Elliott Smith because I was working in a studio, but when I learned that he was the one who was like recording him and producing himself, I mean, obviously he worked with like Larry Crane and with so many great engineers and producers, but he was like a really great producer of himself. And I think that's what got me into home recording when I was I went to the summer camp and then came home and wanted a 4-track for Christmas.
Nice.
So I've always wanted to be involved in that side of things.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you have something in about 10 minutes, so
I do.
we'll go ahead. I think we should wrap it up just to be respectful of your time.
Oh, that's very thoughtful because I'm not respectful of my own time. So
yeah.
I mean, we could also like start some serious drama-ish right now.
Who do we want to fight?
I don't know.
Nazis?
Yeah, fair.
Gibson?
No.
No.
Gibson.
I don't actually want to start that fight because I'm as much as I have my own thoughts about many things that have happened of late, I am rooting for them as a company for things to turn around and for there to be a much better Gibson here in a few years, because it's a legacy brand that I think deserves that kind of treatment.
You're not
I
a
like that.
millennial. You're not a millennial, Andrew. Then
You know, I'm just kind of my own thing.
did millennials kill Gibson guitars?
Oh, we kill all these
Okay.
things.
Video killed the Gibson Star. What?
Killed Applebee's. Killed it dead.
Well, I mean, have you been to an Applebee's?
My father-in-law loves Applebee's.
That strikes me as like the most Midwestern. Like, why don't we get dressed up a little bit fancy and go to Applebee's and see what happens?
My boyfriend is from Cleveland.
Oh,
and
Ohio.
we are constantly having he does this to annoy me because he thinks it's funny. And I grew up in New York City, so I have not been to all kinds of like chain restaurants that are wildly popular.
Like the Texas
So
Roadhouse?
he'll just be like, hey, by the way, yeah, I've never been to that. This is like what we do in the car. He'll be like, have you been to Applebee's? And I'm like, no, I have not been to Applebee's. Have you been to Chili's? Like, yeah, I went to Chili's once in Florida. So he just loves to name chain restaurants to me. And yeah. And then I'll say I hadn't been there, and then he'll say that's where I went for this like big family occasion.
Yup. I'm from kind of rural Ohio, so
Oh, so you get it.
I get it. But he probably knows a lot of great Polish food if he's from Cleveland.
He probably does, but that's not what he wants to make fun of me about. Just chain restaurants.
Yeah. No, that was like what we had, because like I love supporting little businesses, but the ones in my little town just weren't very good, and sometimes we're below meth houses. So
Okay.
yeah, I kind of would like to avoid that particular pizza joint.
I don't think anyone would fault you.
No, not at all. The biker bar with the perpetual drunk person half in and half out the door, like laying on the ground, like I don't think I want to go to there.
I don't know. It's just kind of got that Midwestern hospitality feel, doesn't it?
Midwestern hospitality would have been picking that person up and like putting them on a sofa.
Yeah, just now, and I was like, give him a bed.
Yeah, it's just like, don't let them get like that. Their back's gonna hurt so bad later.
Yeah.
Right, someone grab their keys and let's drive their car home so their car's parked in their driveway when they wake up.
Oh, that would be too nice.
This is nice.
That
would be very nice. No, I think since I think we've decided with the last little bit of time that we're going to fight chain restaurants, I just wanted to say that chain restaurants need to have smaller menus.
Oh my God, Cheesecake Factory, why is your menu 20 pages long?
See, I can't even weigh in because I don't know.
Like, I'm a Christian. I've read the Bible. It's a really long book, and reading through that menu gives me anxiety. It's just too long.
Yeah, I like to in basically all kinds of shopping, whether that's at a restaurant or like I was just saying the other day, there's this bookstore I really like in LA, and I like it because for the new books, at least, the selection is really small and well curated. It's not like stuff I see everywhere. So anytime that a store has like a very small selection, but clearly a lot of thought went into it, that's much less overwhelming for me than showing up and like when people are like, this is the greatest thrift store ever. I'm like, I actually can't deal because there's so much for me to look through that I'm having a panic attack.
No, I get that. I hate that. I love those little records. I just want my menu to be one page, not no back, like a readable font. Yeah. I have very bad vision. And I don't want to flip through things and sticky like plastic pages and spiral bound.
That someone's toddler had their hands all over.
Licking actively because I've been around toddlers lately, and my niece won't keep anything out of her friggin' mouth. We were at the zoo, and she was at the otter exhibit, and she just starts licking the glass at the otter exhibit. You're like, ugh.
This is all just a great case for why In-N-Out is one of the best chain restaurants in the U.S. It's just a very simple menu.
Andrew, I've changed my mind. I will fight you.
You're not a fan of In-N-Out?
No.
It's not very vegan.
I'm a massive fan.
So I have not been. Speaking of otters, this is a great place to end on. I feel like my favorite performance video. Have you seen the sea otters playing a synth? It's
but
just
I'm
like
about
a lot
to.
of them putting their hands through the cages, like playing a synth, and it's like some sick noise music.
Nice.
That sounds like the best way I could spend the rest of my Friday.
For listeners, go to the Facebook group. I will put that in the visual thread for this episode.
Oh my God, yes. It's perhaps my most watched YouTube video.
I feel like we are now morally obligated to download that create a 10-hour loop and then upload it to our
I think you
channel.
should.
Yeah,
Go.
I'm in.
You run point on that, Andrew. Run point.
All right. BRB, my laptop is going to be rendering that out for the next 8 days.
Cool. Well, for those listening, thanks for listening and thanks for understanding. Please rate and review on iTunes or wherever you can rate and review this podcast. We have a store at getoffsetpodcast.com. Please buy a shirt if you feel so compelled. And the Mount Hood Fuzz pedal from Spruce Effects is still on sale for $199 when you use the code GETOFFSET at checkout. It's a triangle muff fuzz with a 3-band EQ and a presence knob and a germanium boost. That's I think always in front of it. I don't think you can change the direction.
Yep, it's always in front of it because there's no point in putting it in the back. It's a great sounding pedal, and we have it on sale to celebrate 10K downloads. That is 10,000 downloads of episodes of this show, and we
to
could
be
not be more
honest, by the
grateful.
time this gets released, it might
Yay.
have 11,000.
Could go,
That would be
why stop there?
sick.
12.
Let's go for 100,000. Complete domination.
1 million downloads.
Then we'll be getting that Casper money. All right.
There we go.
Ooh. Give the Casper to the guy sleeping outside the bar.
It was a lady.
Aw.
And with that,
Sadie.
oh,
I
you
will.
know, guy is in a gender neutral way.
I like guy in a gender neutral way, personally.
Well, this guy's gotta go.
This guy right here. Well, bye, and I guess goodbye.
Bye.